The 226th Battalion was an infantry battalion of the Australian Army, raised in late 1940 for service during the Second World War. The battalion undertook garrison duties in Malaya and Singapore prior to the start of the Pacific War. In 1941–42, following the Japanese invasion of Malaya, the battalion fought during the Malayan campaign. After the fall of the island, however, a large number of men from the battalion became prisoners of war, remaining in captivity until being liberated at the end of the war in 1945. The battalion was never re-raised. History. Formed as part of the 2nd Australian Imperial Force for service during the Second World War, the 226th Battalion was raised in November 1940 at Groveley in Brisbane, Queensland, under the command of Lieutenant Colonel Arthur Boys. The battalion formed part of the 27th Brigade along with the 229th and 230th Battalions. Attached to the 8th Division, the 27th Brigade was the last AIF brigade raised during the war. The colours chosen for the battalion's unit colour patch were the same as those of the 26th Battalion, a unit which had served during World War I before being raised as a militia formation in 1921. These colours were purple over blue, in a diamond shape, although a border of grey in an oval shape was added to the UCP to distinguish the battalion from its militia counterpart. The oval border denoted that the battalion was an 8th Division unit, with an authorised strength of around 900 personnel, like other Australian infantry battalions of the time. The battalion was formed around a nucleus of 4 rifle companies, designated A through to D, each consisting of 3 platoons. The majority of the 226's personnel were drawn from Queensland and northern New South Wales, and arrived at the battalion in December 1940 after having completed basic training elsewhere, while the officers were hand-picked by Boys. In early 1941, the battalion moved to Redbank where further training was undertaken in preparation for joining the rest of the 27th Brigade. In February the 226th was transported to Bathurst where they joined the other 2 battalions assigned to the brigade along with the artillery, anti-tank and engineer units. Brigade-level exercises were conducted and the battalion paraded through the town of Bathurst before finally they received orders for embarkation. On the 29th of July the final movement order was received and the battalion entrained for Melbourne, although initially it had been intended that the 226th, and indeed the entire 8th Division, would be sent to the Middle East to join the 7th and 9th Divisions in the campaign against the Germans and Italians. Concerns about Japanese intentions in the Pacific led to the decision to deploy them in Southeast Asia instead, embarking upon the Marnix van St. Aldegond, a Dutch ship of approximately 20,000 tons displacement. Their ultimate destination was Singapore. Sailing via Fremantle, they arrived in Singapore on the 15th of August 1941. Upon landing they moved to Camp Wavell at Changi where they settled in to serve as a garrison force. As the possibility of war with Japan grew, the battalion deployed over the Strait of Johor onto the mainland, to build up defences and carry out jungle training, and undertake patrols onto the peninsula to check the accuracy of maps and locate tracks. During this time they were based at Kota Tinggi and Jasin. On the 6th of December 1941, the battalion received the code word to adopt battle stations and adopted a defensive position to the north of Kota Tinggi. In the early hours of the 8th of December, fighting began as the Japanese launched their invasion of Malaya by landing troops at Kota Baru. Nevertheless, the battalion saw no action in the first month of the fighting, and on 10 January 1942 it was moved to Johor, where the 27th Brigade took up a position in the Sagarmat sector as part of West Force, alongside British and Indian troops. The 226th Battalion was located at the Battalion estate between Gemas and Batu Anam. The Japanese attempted to outflank the Allied positions west of Gemas at Muar. After the 230th Battalion conducted a successful ambush, West Force began the withdrawal back to Singapore Island, during which the 226th Battalion took part in a number of rearguard actions. Actions were fought at the Namazi Estate, 40-mile peg and the 31-mile peg. Of these, perhaps the most significant came at the 31-mile peg, where 16 platoon, under Lieutenant William McGarry, conducted a bayonet charge near Ahitam. They crossed the strait on the 30th of January and along with the rest of the 27th Brigade took up positions in the defense of the causeway in anticipation of the Japanese assault, which came a week later on the 8th of February 1942. After being subjected to heavy aerial and artillery bombardment, the following day the battalion's commanding officer, Arthur Boys, handed over command to Lieutenant Colonel Roland Oakes, formerly the second-in-command of the 219th Battalion. Boys was called away to help organize the island's rear area defense and was subsequently given command of X Battalion, a composite unit made up of reinforcements that had been separated from the units. Shortly after taking up this appointment, however, Boys was killed along with a number of his men when the battalion was ambushed while attempting to fill a gap in the lines that had resulted from a Japanese breakthrough. On the 10th of February, the 226th Battalion moved into position on 4,000 yards frontage between Bukit Manda and Bukit Panjang, with each of its companies on top of a high feature, separated by 1,000 yards gaps of dense bush. Over the course of the next week, the 226th fought to defend the island. However, by the 15th of February, the Allied defense had crumbled and Lieutenant General Arthur Percival, the general officer in command of British Empire troops in Malaya, announced that the garrison would surrender. Following this, men from the 226th Battalion were detained at Changi until May 1942, when they were dispersed to different locations throughout the Pacific, Burma, Thailand, Borneo and Japan, where they were used as slave labor by the Japanese. They spent the next 3.5 years as prisoners of war until the war came to an end, when they were liberated and repatriated back to Australia. Casualties included 432 men killed in action or died in captivity, 136 wounded and 1,157 prisoners of war. Members of the battalion received the following decorations: 1 MC, 1 DCM and 15 MIDS. Battle Honours. For its service during the Second World War, the 226th Battalion was awarded the following battle honours: Malaya 1941, 1942, Johor and Singapore Island.